Hi, I'm Corey Larson, and this is my video post for Module 4, SPAD 561, Summer 23. Jumping into it after watching the three-part documentary Dream On the 1996 U.S. Women's Olympic basketball team. I think there's a lot to learn here in terms of how Black women were kind of brought into this system that the NBA and USA Basketball created to try and grow the women's game in the United States. And while I think all of their intentions were very good, and as we see the WNBA today, there was certainly some fruit. I think there was a lot of issues as it related to racism, sexism, and the intersectionality of the fact that all but three members of the Olympic basketball team were African American. Probably the biggest, kind of racist thing that probably gets into a little bit of a intersectionality of the fact that a significant number of these women were not straight. Was the way that they wanted them to be portrayed. They had to wear makeup for all their photo shoots, and they had to be seen in dresses as opposed to, I think one of the quotes was a nice suit and some flats, and almost like they were trying to overly sexualize these women, even though based on their background and their culture, that was not something that they were going to be comfortable with. And Dawn Staley and Cheryl Swoops talk about that, along with some of the other athletes, that they were felt that they were not allowed to be their true selves. And I think that there were some racist undertones, and the documentary talks about that. They didn't want them to be perceived as being, too thuggish, to steal the term that I believe they use even at one point. And I think there's just nothing but racism all over that. And like I said, I believe they were well-intentioned. They were trying to sell a product to corporate America, because if they were going to be able to start a professional league, any professional league in this country needs corporate sponsors to really drive the engine. So there was that. Certainly sexism, my gosh. If you want to just look at the fact that they were paid $50,000 a year, which was, far less than their male counterparts would receive, and probably far less than a lot of their counterparts in other countries were receiving. The fact that they were made to fly on just regular chartered flights in coach seats, which doesn't sound like a major sacrifice, but if you've ever been on a 17-hour flight, that's not an ideal condition when you're going to be expected to show up at a basketball gym and perform to the maximum of your potential. And that was certainly far differently than how the men's team, and I would say probably not even the Dream Team. I think probably if you went back to the '88 Olympic men's team, they were probably flying under nicer conditions than what these women were being asked to accept in 1996, and that can't be viewed as anything but sexism. I know Val Ackerman tries to sell it as kind of a financial, that was all we could afford. Well, yeah, maybe it was, but there was it was all that you could afford based on their sex, right? And then one area, I think, I don't know, maybe if I'm missing the boat on intersectionality here, that really stuck out to me was Ruthie Bolton's story about how she dealt with a real situation of domestic abuse. That her husband at the time was verbally and physically abusive to her, and how she turned to the team. But there's part of me questions, like, maybe this is looking through a 2023 lens, like, how the heck could that be overlooked? Here you have an African-American female athlete, and yet she's exposed to this horrible situation that is unfortunately all too prevalent in society in terms of spousal abuse and domestic violence, and just really, really terrible that she wasn't given more support to help her get out of that situation from USA Basketball. I know she talks about how her teammates rose her up, but the fact that something like that, certainly the people running the team had to be aware, and the fact that they didn't take greater action, or at least it doesn't get discussed, is really challenging to me. Anyways, so those are kind of the three big things that stood out to me. There were certainly way more, over the course of 4.5 hours of documentary. Just really great stuff. I think as we look at the WNBA today, these women did it. They helped, prove that women's basketball can be successful. Although maybe we're not quite there yet. As we look at Brittany Griner's situation in Russia, unfortunately, women are still having to go over seas and be exposed to some less than ideal conditions in those countries to be able to earn really a fraction of what their counterparts in the men's league make. But anyways, Dream On, great documentary, really opens up a lot of my view on the racism, sexism, and some of the intersectionality that these strong black female athletes had to deal with. Thank you. Bye.